Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum. Hello everyone. Okay, so for this video, we discuss for the new chapter, which is number 2 for quadratic equation. So under this chapter, we'll discuss 3 lessons: factorization, solving quadratic equation, discriminant, and the last one is the application of quadratic equation. But for this video, we discuss only for the first lesson, which is factorization, solving, and also the quadratic equation with no real solution. Okay, so I believe you're familiar with the quadratic equation. But before we go to the quadratic equation, we must understand about the factorization process by using the common factor, right? So factorize means write as a product of factors. So for example, when you have 3 times 3, sorry, when you have 9, you know that this 9 actually can be 3 times 3 or maybe 9 times 1, right? So these two we call a factor of that 9. But for factorization method, when we have a specific equation, for example, a quadratic equation, to be specific, we're using this common factor in order to find the factor of the quadratic equation. Alright, so as an example, okay, find the suitable common factor for this equation. Alright, so since we have these two terms in between 5x and also negative 30, so you know that this 5x is the simplest form. But for this 30, you can find the multiplication that's suitable for this 30. So from 30, maybe it's from this 30 times 1, or maybe 15 times 2, or maybe 10 times 3, or maybe 5 times 6, right? So in order to find the common factor between this 5x and also the 30, so make sure that you have 5 within your multiplication of 30. So the suitable is 5 and also 6, right? So therefore, in order to find the common factor for this 5x minus 30, you must change this 30 become 5 and also 6. So that both terms consist of 5, so therefore you can factorize that 5 outside, put in front of the bracket, and the remaining value inside the bracket. Okay, so that's why we have 5 multiplied with x minus 6. And the other one, x squared plus 4ab minus 3x. You know that the common factor over here is an a, since all of the terms here consist of a. So you put a, or place the a in front of the bracket, and the remaining value inside the bracket. Okay, so if you're not sure, you can try to multiply back the factor of this equation. Try to multiply back to check your answer. Alright, so that's why the answer will be a multiplied with a plus 4b minus 3. Okay, another one under factorization, we call it factorizing by group. So there will be one-step factorizing and two-step factorizing. So for one-step factorizing, meaning that by using only one step, you can identify the common factor for this equation. For example, you have 3x minus 2 plus x times x minus 2. So both terms consist of x minus 2. So that will be your common factor. So put in front of the bracket or put it with another bracket. So the remaining value, which is 3 plus x with another bracket. Okay, so again, you can check your answer by multiply the whole thing with 3 and also the whole thing with x. So therefore, you have this kind of equation. This is what I mean by one-step factorizing. By using only one step, you can identify what is the common factor for this equation. Next will be two-step factorizing. So you can guess which is by using two-step, you will have the answer, right? So in order to answer this question using two-step factorizing, usually we place or we group the first two term in a group and the last two term in a group. Right? So therefore we have 3x minus 12 and also xy minus 4y. So 3x minus 12 plus xy minus 4y. But you have to be careful with the sign in between them because you put them in a bracket. So make sure if you, let's say your question gives you a negative sign, but then you have to change the sign at the back here, right? So you have to be careful with the sign in between these two brackets. Alright, so next, what you can do is you have to find the common factor within these two brackets. So the common factor between 3x minus 12, there must be 3, is it? So the remaining value, which is x minus 4. So same thing over here, the common factor will be y, and the remaining value, which is x minus 4. And in order to factorize further, you can see over here the common factor is x minus 4, because both of them consist of x minus 4, so therefore x minus 4 will be the common factor, and the remaining value put in another bracket. Right? So that will be the answer. So by using only two steps, you can get the common factor, or you can factorize your equation into a group. Alright. Okay, so let's try a few examples from this work example number 1, and also I provide also the answer over here. So let's try question number 9 and question number 10. So for question number 9, so x multiply with s minus 2 minus 5 s minus 2. So also the common factor over here will be s minus 2, since both factor or both equation consist of s minus 2. So s minus 2 will be the common factor, and the remaining value, which is x minus 5, in another group. So by using only a single step, one step, you can identify the answer. Okay, so let's take a look at this question number 10. So again, the first two terms in a group, the last two terms in a group. Right? Be careful again with the sign in between them. So in our case, it's only an addition, so it's not should be no problem. Alright, so now factorize the first two terms over here. So that must be x be the common factor, since both terms consist of x. And then second term, the common factor will be y, because both terms consist of y. So therefore the remaining value must be 6 minus b. Again, so the common factor for these two equations must be 6 minus b. Therefore, the remaining value is equal to x plus y. So therefore, this will be the final answer. Okay, so you can try for the rest of the equation from work number example number 1, and so that you will try to understand what does it mean by the common factor and factorizing by group. Okay, next will be factorization of quadratic expression. So I believe you understand about the quadratic equation. The highest power of x must be 2. Okay, so that's why we call them as a quadratic equation. Is power 3, we call them as a cubic equation. Power 4, we call them a quad equation. Alright, and then and so on. So we focus on for the quadratic equation. A quadratic equation in the standard form is ax squared plus bx plus c equal to 0, where a, b, and c over here can be any value, or can be any real number, except that a can be 0, because if 0 over here multiply with x squared, therefore your equation will eliminate this x squared, so your equation is no longer a quadratic equation. Alright, so factorizing is the reverse of calculating the product of factors. In order to factorize a quadratic, we need to find a factor which, when multiplied together, equal the original quadratic equation. But I believe you understand how to factorize using your calculator of your quadratic equation. Just simply change your calculator mode to EQN, and just select for the degree number 2 and substitute your A, B, and C into your calculator, so that you can simply identify what is the factor for that equation. Right? So let's take a look for before we proceed to the example using the calculator. So let's take a look this special case of difference between two squares. Since we discussed about the quadratic with your highest power of is power 2, so x squared minus a squared is also an example of quadratic equation. So if you have x squared minus a squared, so what we can do here is we are using this kind of factorization. Alright, so which is, if you have x squared minus a number with squared, or you can find the perfect square over here, so therefore you can change to x minus a multiplied with x plus a. Alright, so you can expand this quadratic equation into this factor. Right, you can find the factor, or in other way you can substitute your value of a, b will be 0, and c with a squared. Alright, so you can just simply substitute your calculator. Alright, so let's try a few examples here. You have x squared minus 25, and you know that the perfect square of this 25 will be 5. So x squared minus 5 squared. Right? So since this equation is similar to this kind of standard form of special case of difference between 2 squared, so therefore your factor will be x minus 5, x plus 5. Okay, so let's try this cos squared theta minus 1. So before you continue to the standard form, now your a squared is no longer in the a squared, but what you have is only 1. But don't worry, actually you can change your equation over here be 1 squared, because you know that 1 squared is a 1, right? So now your equation in the standard form, now you can change become cos theta minus 1 cos theta plus 1, be the answer. Okay, how about when you have a coefficient of your x squared, which is not equal to your standard form here. So what you can do is you can factorize the two outside, right? So when you factorize the outside, and you know that this 16 is a perfect square of 4, so 2x squared minus 4 squared, right? So what you can do here is you can change to x minus 4 and x plus 4 with the multiplication of 2 in front. Alright, so usually we try to factorize them first rather than you simply press your calculator, because if you press your calculator, we're missing this number of factor. Alright, so usually you factorize them first, find the standard form of your equation, then you change to be the factor form. Okay, so this is the answer. Alright, so solving. Next will be solving quadratic equation. In this section, we'll assume that you already know how to factorize the quadratic equation. Maybe you can use the special case, which is the difference between squared, or maybe you can use your calculator using the mode of EQN in order to express your quadratic equation into the factor form. If this is not the case, you can study either material in this series where factorizing is explained, right? So example, if two things are multiplied together to get 0, then one of those things must be 0. Okay, what does it mean? Right, so let's say you have an equation of x squared plus 3x minus 28 equal to 0. And you know that you can press your calculator, mod EQN, then you have a factor like this. Okay? Alright, so what you can do here is you equate them, both of them equal to 0. So that will be x plus 7 equal to 0, or x minus 4 equal to 0. Next, you have to substitute, or you have to solve your x. Solving over here means your x equal to something, right? You have to solve your x until you have a value. So in our case, our x, either x equal to 7 or x equal to 4. Right? So it's very important to determine what is the x value in order to solve the quadratic equation. Don't leave your answer in the quadratic in the factor form, right? So when the question asks you to solve, then you have to give your x into a number. All right, so let's try another example. I believe you can press your calculator until you have a value, right? But actually, before you get the value, now you must understand that this number will be equal to 0, right? 3x plus 4 equal to 0, right? So if you press your calculator will give you like your x equal to 5 over 2. But in order to have in the factor form, right? So what you can do is from here you can change them become a factor. So therefore, it's very important to determine the value of your x. Remember, factorization is the reverse. Okay, in the previous slide, is a reverse process of solving the quadratic equation. Okay, so please try this work example number 2. I provide also the answer on the next slide, but remember, use your calculator in order to solve your quadratic equation. Okay, another method of solving quadratic equation is by using the formula. Right, so consider the general quadratic equation is ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. So here is the formula that we are going to use in order to factorize or in order to solve the quadratic equation. So which is x equal to negative b plus minus square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. How to use this quadratic equation? So you just simply compare your equation with the formula, right? So if your ax squared plus bx plus c equal to 0, and make sure your a cannot be equal to 0, then the two solution of roots are, first, since over here it consists of plus and minus, and if you look carefully to this equation, it consists of plus and minus. Actually, you can just simply change them to be minus b minus square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a, and the other one is negative b plus square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. Okay, so then they satisfy the quadratic equation consists of two solutions. Okay, let's say lah, kalau you ada cubic equation, then you suppose you will have three solution of your x. Okay, since we discussed about the quadratic power of 2, so therefore you have two value of x, right? Okay, so let's try this example. Suppose we wish to solve x squared minus 3x minus 2 equal to 0 using the formula. Okay, so what you're gonna do, first thing first, you will compare with the general form, which is ax squared plus bx plus c equal to 0. So we see that a equal to 1, b equal to negative 3, and c equal to negative 2. So these values are substituted into the formula. Right? Remember, this is the formula plus and minus to show that you will have two value of x. Right? You just simply substitute your b, your a, and your c into this equation until you have these two equations. Right? So you will have 3 plus minus square root of 17 equal to, or maybe you can put them in the decimal number, as long as you come up with the two solution of your equation. All right, so you can try the work example number 3. Okay, by using the formula, make sure try to solve using the quadratic formula in order to solve your x. Okay, but I'm going to show you the answer for question number 1. If you compare with the general equation of ax squared plus bx plus c equal to 0, then you know that your a equal to 1, your b equal to 12, your c equal to 5. So therefore, just simply substitute into the equation. So x equal to negative b plus minus square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. So negative b will be negative 12 plus minus square root of 12 squared minus 4, your a1, your c5 over 2a, your a is 1. Okay, so if you solve your calculator over here, then we have negative 12 plus minus square root of 144 minus 20 is 144 minus 20 is equal to square root 124 over 2. Okay, so you can simplify further. Maybe there will be a answer for this square root of 124, or maybe you can leave your answer until this one. But if you press your calculator again, you will have 2 square root of 31 over 2 with plus and minus. Okay, 31 over here. So you can leave your answer with the decimal number, or you can leave your answer with the exact form of your set. All right. Okay. All right. Now next, quadratic equation with no real solution. Okay. In the relation to quadratic equation, imaginary number and complex roots occur when the value under set of the quadratic formula is negative. Okay. So remember, if you press your calculator with the square root of negative number, for example, square root of negative 2, your calculator gives you math error. Alright, but in quadratic equation, so we call them will be no real solution, right? Okay, as an example, like the previous question, we have square root of 124. So this square root 124 has a value, which is if you press your calculator, you have a value of the square root of 124. Unfortunately, when you have a when you substitute into your calculator, suddenly the value inside this square root give a negative number, then we call them as the quadratic equation with the no real solution. Okay, so when this occurs, the equation has no real roots in the set of real number. So the roots belong to the set of complex numbers, and will be called complex root, right? Complex root. Okay, so let's take a look at this quadratic equation, right? So we solve using this quadratic formula. So this quadratic equation is not factorable, so we apply the quadratic formula, right? So if you press your calculator, if you just simply substitute into the mode EQN, compare with the A, B, and C, suddenly the calculator gives you a math error. Actually, there is a value. You can substitute into this formula and look carefully with the square root of -4. Remember that square root of -4 cannot be calculated using the calculator. So focus on the square root of -4. So remember that I equal to square root of -1, right? So focus on the square root of -4. So what you can do over here is you multiply with 4 and square root of -1. Okay, it's expandable, right? Which is you can substitute into the square root of 4 and square root of -1. And because this square root of 4 is a process of multiplication between 4 and also -1. So that's why we can substitute into this. So square root of 4 is equal to 2, square root of -1. So you know that this square root of 1 is equal to I in the complex number subtopic that we discussed in the last video, right? So therefore, from this square root of 4, -4, you can change to the 2i, because of this process, because of this process, right? So therefore, the final answer is -2 plus minus I, because you will cancel out with 2 and 2 here, right? So the final answer must be -2 plus minus I. Okay, so notice that after combining the value, we are left with the negative value under the square root radical, right? So this negative square root creates an imaginary number as a number containing I. So at that I show you already how we change the square root of negative number with the I, right? So later, if you have this kind of square root of -1, square root of number, then you can change them to be I, right? So let's try this one question. Show that the following quadratic equation has no real solution. So let's say question number 1 here. So what you can do is you are using this A, B, and C. So your A equal to 3, B equal to 2, C equal to 7. Then substitute into the quadratic formula. Sorry, negative B, so there must be -2. So -2 plus minus square root of 2 squared minus 4 times 3 times 7 over 2 times 3. So you can see from here you will have a negative sign, which is 4 times 3 times 7. You will have square root of -80 over 6. So this square root of 80, right? So what you can do is you will factorize the -2 plus minus square root of 80 square root of -1. Okay, if you press your calculator or find the common factor over here for this square root of 80, so square root of 80 is actually from 16 times 5 square root of -1 square root of 6. So therefore over here again 16 5 -1 over 6, then -2 plus minus 4 square root of 5 I, by the way, over 6. So that will be the final answer, which is you can leave your answer with the square root of 80i if you want, but you can actually simplify further, right? So also please try the remaining question, and I would like to continue to the next video. Thank you.